Well, thank you for taking the time to check out this short little video that I wanted to make. I think this video is probably more for me to talk about my channel and the few people that still care at this point. I appreciate all your support over the years. 500 episodes, 6 years. It's been an interesting ride. I just wanted to talk about the past, present, and future of my YouTube channel and podcast show. When I started, there was about 500,000 podcasts, I think. And now there's almost 4 million. I don't know how many of those are all active, but there's a lot more shows now and things have changed drastically since when I started in 2019. So when I started the show, it was 6 years ago. It was mostly audio interviews. There was no video yet at that point. It was an eclectic variety of guests. I didn't really give it a lot of thought. I just knew that I liked interview shows like Howard Stern and Joe Rogan and Conan O'Brien. And I think that's why I named the show the Chuck Shute Podcast. Because like, well, that's the shows that I like. It's just their name. I don't want to make it all complicated. When I started, I was kind of like a cover band. I would listen to other interviews of the guests and I would try to find things that they had posted online, other things that they had talked about. And then I try to bring up those topics in my interviews and kind of maybe give it a little bit of a spin of my own. But it was a lot of things that they had already previously talked about. A lot of the questions I asked, I already knew the answers to. But now I feel like I'm much better at having a more organic conversation. And although I may know a lot of things about the guests, I still do a lot of research on my guests, but I try not to ask them things they've already been asked before because I want to uncover new truths. So that's something that's kind of changed over the years. The guests that I've had, again, like I said, eclectic. So just different backgrounds. You know, I had authors, entertainers, doctors, experts, musicians, many of my heroes, actually rock stars, some of my favorite actors and comedians, health and fitness experts that I've looked up to over the years. And that part has been really cool to meet some of my heroes. What I didn't realize, the cheesy cliche, is all the friends I made along the way. But seriously, not only guests that were on the show, listeners who are on the show, and other podcasters and YouTube creators. I've met some of the most amazing, kind, nice, funny people that I never would have met if I hadn't started this show. So that is one, definitely a bonus of starting this thing, is all the cool people that I've met. Another thing that was interesting that I learned from doing 500 episodes, and something that I didn't really think about when I started it, was like how other people that were already in my life, my family and friends, coworkers, things like that, how they would react to me starting a podcast. Kind of like not what I thought. Like I thought everyone would be like, oh, that's so cool, and like so happy for you. And yes, there are a lot of people that have been very supportive and very happy for me. But then there's a lot of people that were not so happy for me. And that was kind of interesting to see people's reactions, that they didn't like the content I was doing or they disagreed with it. But it's weird to see like people that you thought were like in your corner and like had your back just do a complete 180 and turn on you. That is something that I didn't anticipate. I don't know if they thought I was spreading misinformation or I'm a bad person or any of those things, but I've always just tried to help people and make the world better. So that was kind of something I was like, wait, I'm like trying to like spread truth and like entertainment and have fun. And that's upsetting to some people. It was very interesting to see people's reactions from that. In terms of things that I've learned over 6 years, 500 episodes, and interviewing all these different kinds of people. One thing is, although success doesn't always equal happiness, I do feel like the people who are at the top of their game, and you hear about, I've never had him on the show, but Alice Cooper, you know, I've interviewed his band members, a lot of people that have worked with him. I've heard nothing but good things about that guy because I think he's still at the top of his game. So he just doesn't have, I guess he doesn't have a reason to be upset. And you find that with a lot of different people who are at the top of their game. They love life and they're doing great. There are people who have had success who are really unhappy because I think it's often feel like they should have had more success. They should have been bigger. They should have made more money or whatever. So they're unhappy. They're bitter. And that's interesting to see that kind of dichotomy. I might fall in that latter category. Actually, I might be bitter. I feel like my show should be bigger and I'm very bitter about it. So, but what's interesting too is that when you do a lot of these interviews, you start to recognize certain patterns. It's kind of interesting, whether it's the route of success or failure or happiness or seeking the truth and uncovering lies and corruption. The path of sobriety is one that I've seen a lot of over and over again, that story and that kind of path. What's healthy for our bodies and what's not healthy. What's popular and what's unpopular. How the media works. That's really interesting. That's something that I really learned a lot about, not only by uncovering it, by talking to guests, but also just with my own show and what things would get press that the press would care care about and what things nobody cared about. The press did not want to run with that story. It was not something that they wanted to print on their website. So that was really interesting. I really learned a lot. You know, you can go down that rabbit hole yourself if you want. It's pretty obvious what sells today in the media and what doesn't. In terms of mistakes, I do think there's been some mistakes with my channel. Maybe I'm too eclectic because, like I said, I've had a variety of guests from a variety of different backgrounds. You know, maybe I was too political, or other people will say I wasn't political enough. When I started, I said I'm never going to get political because I'm an independent and my views are all over the place. So I was going to piss everybody off. And maybe that's what I did. I don't know. Maybe I pissed everybody off. Most of the issues that I care about, I feel like they're not political, but they get turned into political things because of, again, we go back to how the media works. So that's a whole nother rabbit hole, but yeah, I don't know. So for some reason, my channel's just not doing what it needs to do. Maybe I need more clips of my interviews. Maybe I need less guests. Maybe I need more solo content, shorter content. I don't really know, because my vision was always kind of an eclectic, in-depth interview show such as Joe Rogan or Howard Stern. I just thought if they could do it, why can't I do it? In some ways, I think I achieved success that I never thought possible. You know, if I could go back in time to when I was like 14, 15 years old, and I literally had posters of guys that I would sit down and do hour-long interviews with, some longer than hours. That is crazy to think about in some ways. But in other ways, I was like, you know, I had higher aspirations for this thing for myself. At this point in time, I thought I would be a lot further along. So that's a little bit disappointing. But, you know, I set out to change the world and help people. I've kind of failed at that. So at this point, I'm kind of just trying to more focus on helping myself and those in my close circle, which my circle has gotten a lot smaller since I started the channel, which is also another interesting thing, because although my network has gotten bigger, my inner circle, people that are close friends that I really trust, it's actually gotten a lot smaller, which is maybe just throughout life, maybe that's how it goes too. I don't know. But recently I just feel like I don't know if you would call it a breakdown or breakthrough.
Breakdown, breakthrough.
But I've seen a lot of podcasters quitting. Even Mark Maron, who was at one point one of the biggest podcasts. I think he was definitely one of the first, if not the first podcast. I think he's quitting his podcast, and he feels like he's reached that point where he's done it all and it starts to get repetitive. And it's kind of like, well, what is the point at this point? And I understand that, because there's, like I said, there's patterns you start to recognize, and you start to kind of go, okay, well, I kind of know how this story goes. Do I really need to do another interview like this where I kind of know how the story ends? So I'm trying to, again, uncover new truths with these interviews, try to take a different spin on things. I've had 3 or 4 interviews recently. I haven't posted them, but I felt like they were really interesting to me. But again, we'll see how many views they get or whatever. That's ultimately the deciding factor of whether this is going to be successful or not, if people enjoy it. I will still think I will always do it. I could see myself quitting at some point too, though. I mean, I think it's getting to the point where it's either going to be more of like a once a week kind of a hobby thing, or I could see myself, I never thought I would say this, but I could see myself just completely just pulling the plug on this thing like a Mark Maron did, because I think I'd look back with regret before I would say, oh, I'd never do that. Like, I don't want to give up, but I don't even look at it as giving up. I feel like I did achieve a lot of things. I didn't achieve all the things that I wanted to achieve. I mean, sure, I'd love to interview Axl Rose and Nikki Sixx and Larry David and some of these other people that would be really interesting to have a conversation with. But I've learned so many things and met so many cool people. And I feel like I've learned some skills that could be better suited in another career, maybe, or helping the world in a different way, whether maybe it's volunteer, maybe it's not a career. Maybe it's never really been about money for me. It's always been about making a difference and impacting people's lives positively. But I also feel like part of that is impacting my own life positively. And I think I've done that a lot. I have learned so much about the world and people. I've talked to people from almost every part of the world, it seems like, and different backgrounds and ages. And I learn a lot about people. I find people really fascinating. If other people are not enjoying the interviews as much as me, that's okay. I can just do that kind of for fun, but I feel like I need to have some sort of main focus in my life. And maybe it's not doing podcast interviews. So, you know, I've seen some of the guests on my show have gone off and done amazing things. Like Brett Carlisle, started off, when I interviewed him, he was in a band called All or Nothing. He became the singer of Great White. I interviewed Sam Van Colton. He was the guitar player in Faster Pussycat. Now he might, I don't know if he officially joined Godsmack or at least temporarily, and he's in a bunch of other bands and he's kicking ass. Comedian I've had on the show like 3 times, Liz Glazer, recently did the Tonight Show. So I just wonder when it's going to be my time.
Fuck, when, Lord, when? When's going to be my time?
Maybe my time is is not on a podcast. Maybe it's doing something completely different, but I don't want to burden people. I've never wanted to be a burden. And I just feel like chasing guests has started to feel like I'm begging. Yeah, I mean, I get excited when people say yes, but then half the time they ghost me and they don't show up, or they don't share the episode. Basically, the bottom line is I'm kind of at the bottom of the list, and that is not a fun place to be. So I think I'm going to maybe pivot a little bit here. And again, I'll probably still be doing interviews, but it will probably be less. I've got a couple that I've saved up, and so it might be 2 a week, and then it's going to whittle down to maybe 1 a week, and then maybe even less than that. Or like I said, maybe I'll just quit completely. I'm not sure, but I might do other content, reactions, share my thoughts, and build something else that doesn't depend on me relying on other people, because lately that's just kind of been a disaster. It's been a struggle, and I feel like I can only swim upstream for so long before it just becomes cumbersome to the point where, why am I even doing this? Again, I don't want to bother people. So I do still have a few Hail Marys in my back pocket that potentially could create more of a demand for the podcast episodes. But again, if that doesn't work out, I just have to whittle this down to a hobby. I think I'm okay with that. It sucks though, because I do feel like I love doing the interviews and it's so fun, and I feel like I'm getting better at it. But if people aren't going to watch it, I don't really see the point of that. I mean, I could just have a conversation with some people. We could just have a conversation. I don't need to make it a podcast. I mean, I can have interesting conversations with interesting people that we don't need to record it and do all the editing and the clips and the social media and the cover art and all that other bullshit that I don't really care about. So I do care about people. I wanted to help people with this podcast. I don't know that I achieved that goal. So like I said, my channel's kind of on life support right now, but we'll see what happens with the future. For the past, I just want to look back and say thank you to everybody who did support the channel. Thank you if you took the time to be a guest on the channel. Thank you if you helped in any way, like get me a guest or give me advice on my channel if you're a fellow podcaster. I appreciate all that. There's too many people to name. And if you were an asshole and you trolled me and you criticized in a negative way, not critical feedback is fine if it's constructive, but if it wasn't, then I don't know. I guess that's on you. That's your life. Good luck with that. Like, I've had a fucking blast doing this shit. And so, like I said, if I have to end it, I don't look at it as a failure. I look at it as I learned a lot of things. And that's what life is learning from your experiences. And I learned more from these last 6 years than I did in the 7 years that I went to college and got a master's degree in psychology. I've learned way more about people by talking to them one-on-one in a podcast format than I could have reading some psychology textbook. So again, thank you for watching. If you made it all the way through this video, I really appreciate it. And if you've stuck with me throughout the years and supported my channel, even if you just watched 1 or 2 episodes, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Have a great day.